Okay, I show that we're straight up on top of the hour, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rod Lacey. I'm the CEO and founder of Sunstone HR Consulting. We're excited to bring you our connected leadership webinars. The purpose for these is to provide some actionable insights into leading people, especially in these crazy times. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to introduce our wonderful speaker today, Enessa Rezig. So Enessa surprised me at a trade show when some people came up and she just started chatting in Russian with them. So anyway, Enessa, very talented. She is a people leader and advisor who helps companies operate with more clarity, focus, and consistency. She works with startups and growing organizations across tech and biotech, building, scaling people practices that support real business outcomes. She has led organizations through growth, change, and transformation, helping leaders make better decisions, communicate more clearly, and align their teams around what matters most. Today, she partners with companies as a fractional people leader, working closely with executives and managers to turn people strategy into day-to-day execution. Enessa, the time is yours.
All right. Thank you, Rod, for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. So I have a bunch of slides. I want some interaction, if we can. I don't want to just read my slides. I have some numbers in there for you. And, it'd be great if we can make it interactive. I'm happy to stop wherever we need to, but let's go. So leading through ambiguity. Even the word itself is hard to pronounce sometimes. So ambiguity, right? Without burning out your team. It's really important. As leaders, we want to be the thought partners and the leaders and the exhibitions of what we need to represent. So here's a couple of things that we will be chatting about. What it looks like for your team, how uncertainty affects behavior and performance. There's two traps. There's the silence and the other end, the over communicating, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a couple of practical tools like the stop technique, which is kind of well, we'll talk more about that. When things go sideways, how do you lead with compassion? Be consistent, uplevel your leadership always, not just in crisis. So very important tools. So here's the first poll or the first question that I have. On a scale 1 to 5, how comfortable are you communicating with your team when you do not have all the answers? So this would be a good time, Rod, if there's anyone that wants to, even if you're not a leader on this webinar, maybe even in general with your peers, how comfortable are you communicating when there's ambiguity, and when you don't have all the answers?
So everybody throw some numbers into chat for us, please.
And if not, that's okay too. Oh, I see some chat numbers. Let's see. 3. Okay. Mr. Rod. All right. Good. We got some good numbers. 3.5. All right. Perfect. Well, so we want to get us to the point of a 4 or 5. Uh-oh. All right. I want to make sure. So here are some other numbers for you guys that I did some research on. Change does not break organizations, silence during change does. So that's really important about how you communicate. So employees strongly disagree that their leaders communicate effectively. That's 13% out of what, 100%? That's a number. 8.8 trillion, and trillion is the number lost globally in productivity due to employee disengagement. So even myself, and I had my son read my presentation, and he was like, "Trillion, mom, that can't be it." But it's true globally, and this was in 2023, so I don't have the latest stats, but I'm assuming the numbers are even higher. 29% of employees trust their direct manager, down from 46% in just the last 2 years. And I would say, as of the changes in the last few years, the numbers probably going down, but I didn't have the latest stats. So, you as a leader, these are all important things, numbers to know, and ways to present yourself in the future, to think about how you want to present yourself as a leader and in the organization as change happen.
Hey, Enessa.
This is where I stop, right? Um, can you guys see okay, there we go. What ambiguity looks like on your team. So people start to go quiet. whether it's because they're scared or they're playing it safe or they don't want to be raising any concerns, or they don't want to be visible. So I've seen employees that are get quiet because they don't want to be visible during change so that they're not affected by it. Or it goes the other way. Also, I've had employees where they're super vocal and during change. Running on empty during change, there's a lot of deadlines, there's a lot of work to be done. So the energy starts to run out, the performance starts to drop. By the time you see it, it's everything's been building a while and your employees are burnt out. Then formal networking takes over. That's the usual kind of the gossip mill. There's hallway talks, different Slacks, groups, group texts. People are making up stories that are not even there. So you want to make sure that you are partnering with your teams to control that environment. Top performers, or not even top performers, but we're talking about top performers in those situations. They tend to, during uncertainty, they're like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go to a company that's a little bit more stable, that's communicating better with me, that the manager is having those conversations with me. And as we know, losing a top performer, losing any performer is usually 1.5 or 2 times their annual salary is lost in the organization. So the patterns leaders fall into under pressure, waiting for the full picture. So what the employee hears, they're hiding something for us. They're not talking to us about it. What's the better move? Tell them what you know, even if it's a little bit. Tell them when you're going to be able to talk about it again. Do not wait until you have it all figured out. Perfection, knowing everything, could be a killer to the organization and to the people that you're talking to. Reassuring without substance. The team here is they keep saying everything will be fine, but is that really what it's going to be fine? Sometimes things in change are not fine. So you want to make sure that you reassure them with honest framing, and give them next steps. People want to hear what's happening now. What are the next steps? Being visible without naming it. So I've been guilty of this during pressure situations, just like now the screen. Hopefully we kept it even keeled, but it's a small example. But when employees in your team see you stressed, then they start to be stressed and moving through. So regulate your emotions. Try to present yourself as a thoughtful leader. Your calmness in a stressful environment as things are changing is really contagious to your team too. You'll be that trusted leader. Things get busy during change. One-on-ones that you have may need to be changed because you're having an extra meetings. You don't want to talk to people. That's okay. Sometimes that does happen. But the team hears, I don't want to, they don't have time for us. You want to protect those touch points, especially when those changes are happening. You might need to reschedule a one-on-one. You might need to reschedule some meetings, but give time frames, give reasons behind. Don't just cancel blankly and not have those communications. So this is a kind of an interactive time, so feel free to either say it in chat. I'm not going to see the chat, so Rod, if you want to say something, but think of a leader, and happy to get off mute also if you guys want to say, think of a leader that made you feel safe during uncertainty. What did they do? And then on the flip side, think of a leader that didn't make you think and be safe during uncertainty. What did they do? And you don't want to emulate that. Anyone have any sort of call outs in the chat? Anyone?
Um, Simply leaders who communicate.
Yeah.
When that ambiguity is there, it creates all the things you mentioned already. Um, but when they communicate, even if they don't know anything, or they're bound by a certain amount of confidentiality, letting me know that, hey, we're aware of this and we're taking action or something like that. Just communicating something to me in the ambiguity, or acknowledging the any of those conditions that you mentioned, acknowledging, hey, we understand it's a little tense right now, we're working on it, we'll talk to you in the future, something like that.
Exactly, Mac. I mean, that is exactly the point, and we'll be kind of really re-stressing that and talking about that in the rest of the presentation. The communication piece is super important. Anything else that people have seen?
In
I
the
mean,
in
mhm,
the chat we have from Stephanie that transparency is key. And I would just add
absolutely,
you can't communicate too much in that period of time.
absolutely. And then there's also situations where, maybe on the flip side, right? People are not communicating, they're hiding from you. They're having closed door conversations. So one of the biggest things, right, as a leader, you have people the leadership team gets into a room and has these conversations. And so what I've seen in my career is employees start to have, for lack of a better word, freak out sessions in the sense of like, why are they in the room? Why are they constantly talking? Something is going on. So, what I would recommend in that situation would be to say, oh, yeah, we are having meetings. We're working on the strategy, we're working on the agenda, things along those lines. So, that's another point to have. Anything else?
We had one more chat from Mac,
Hmm.
leader who says just figure it out for the team members instead of leading. Just like I guess allowing the ambiguity just to be there.
Yeah. Well, when people start to figure out on their own, right, what happens is the rumors start to happen. People, it's human nature to escalate and think of things that are maybe not even happening, right? And so you want to make sure that the communication is key. But here's the next stage, right? There's other aspects of communication. So there's the silence aspect that we've talked about, where people are avoiding their silence, people are creating their own scenarios in their heads, the trust is eroded. But there's also the other aspect that I've also come into play of over communicating. So what I want to say to leaders is be thoughtful in your communication. I'm a big proponent in communicating, but there's other ways of doing that. So for example, I worked with a CEO where every time there was an all hands, I kind of cringed a little bit because he was a chatterbox. And so we were going through some tough times and he let it out to the organization that, we only had funds for the next 2 months. Well, whether that was true or not, it's a fact, it's a reality, especially nowadays, right, with funding and things along those lines. But did the employees really need to hear that their money is running out in 2 months when they're thinking about their livelihoods and things that are happening? And the fact of the matter, that wasn't the case. That wasn't true. That was just the number that came before the all hands that came into play. So it's always to be thoughtful, right? You want to be a trusted leader, you want to be a leader that people are coming to, and you want to have that communication, but also be mindful of what you're communicating and how that communication is going to be setting off the employees, right? As an HR professional, always like to think about what others are thinking, but as a leader, you should also be doing the same thing. And as with the added pressure of running the team yourself. So, um, what would you do? So here's a scenario that I thought would be kind of fun. Rumors of a reorg are spreading through your team. You're just been told it's true. What do you do? A, wait until you have more information before saying anything. B, acknowledge something is happening and commit to an update soon. C, call a team meeting immediately and share everything you know. Any call outs? Well, because we're all great leaders, we know it's B. You want to make, you don't need to know the full picture to communicate. Like I said, you can acknowledge that something is happening, which is really important. I think that's a key factor is acknowledging that there's something happening. Don't sweep it under the rug, making sure that you're letting people know, yes, I'm aware there's something. I'll have more information for you shortly, and we'll get back to you. And creating timelines. And even if you can't stick to that timeline, make sure that you're having the conversation like, oh, I wasn't able to find out that information in the timeline. I will get back to you. Here's kind of a mindful technique that is helpful as you're thinking through this. It's called the stop technique. So S for stop. So pause before reacting. So just like I said, the leader before, I've also worked with leaders that found out some information and decided to send an email at 11 p.m. at night out to the organization. Actually, it wasn't the organization, it was more to their managers. But even that point, why would you do that? Take a breath, take a minute. Does it need to be communicated right the second? When what I found is I'm a very proactive as a person, but sometimes you need to take a few minutes, maybe even take a day before you get that information out to the employees. Uh, think, what do I know? How do I want to communicate it out to people? What do people need to hear? Kind of create that process in your head. Observe, check to see what your team is feeling, what information is out there already so that you can maybe, you know, stop those questions ahead of time. So, for example, are people coming to you and asking those questions? So take stock of what people are kind of coming to you, or think about what you would want to hear as an employee back to the organization. What would you want to hear as you're leading the organization? What would they want to hear from you? And then proceed. Communicate with honesty, share what you know, name what you don't, and that's okay too. Go ahead and say, here's what I do know, here's what I don't know. And then keep it specific and make sure that you're committed, like I said, to the dates and the timelines. And take a breath, right? Everybody needs to take a breath, take a time, and then proceed. How and when communicate the playbook. So, organizations that communicate openly and consistently during transformation are 3 times more likely to succeed. And that's true. I mean, I think with any organization, the biggest piece is the communicating out. So acknowledge before you have the answer. Name the changes happening, and you do that ASAP. I know I said there's a stop technique, but with that stop technique, don't wait too long. Just make sure you gather your thoughts, know what you're saying, where you're going, gather the information, and proceed. Big thing is to brief your managers before you have any sort of bigger organizational conversations. Your managers are your key people. That you empower them, you make sure that they're speaking the same language as you. You guys are on the same page, and you also ask for feedback from your managers of what they hear from their employees and how would they position this communication. Um, as you're going through this change, whether it's going on for a long time, whether it's a short time frame, communicate in the 3 bucket format. Um, what you know, what I don't know yet, and when you'll be hearing from me next. Short, specific, consistent. And that's really a simple formula, but it really works. And then always involve your people. So there was during Nike's transition time when they were changing executives and there was layoffs, what they did was they involved the employees. They did a survey, wanted to hear from their employees, and they involved the employee population on what was happening and what to do with it. And so there was 100 recommendations, and leadership actually implemented many of them, and engagement improved. So did the customer satisfaction score. And that's really important. And that's a key factor, right? As you're going through this process during change, change can be a week, change can be years, or change could be, short changes. And so the biggest thing is to get input from your employees, from your teams, whether you want to do it formally or informally. And what is also important, and I'll give a couple of plugs here, this is also the time where you would partner closely with your HR people folks, right? Because they also have a lot of engagement information, whether they do it from engagement scores or whether they do it from exit interviews, whether they're also having a lot of conversation with employees and things along those lines. So it's always good to involve the people within the organization as a leader. Any questions on that one? All right, I'll leave that for the end. So, as we go through what's important, we're going to put on our finance data CFO hat. And here's a lot of numbers here for you. And cost of getting it wrong here. Like there's turnover, there's disengaged employees. Like we talked before, people are leaving the organizations, and what's that's costing you. The drop in team output when the people fail to communicate. That's the cost of getting things wrong. but here's the cost of getting things right. You're 21% more profitable when you have engaged teams versus disengaged teams. Um, if you work effective change communication, people are performing 3 times better. More revenue per employee in an organization with strong leadership pipelines, 37%. Those are huge numbers. Improvement across retention, engagement, performance, and organization that invest in leadership development and training. I mean, always invest in yourself and your team. You will definitely get a return on your investment in that. 25% is a huge number. And these numbers don't lie. And we're still getting new numbers as we go into 2026. And as change in the population as we see now that's happening, these are really important numbers. And these are good numbers to also talk about as you're going through your talking to your leadership teams too, as a leader, of why I need more engagement with my employees, why we need to communicate a certain way. You are presenting yourself as a leader. So you're also that manager that will speak to their leaders to say what are the next steps and how we should be presenting some change during this change time frame. Um, get trusted partners in the org. I think that's something that I've been talking about. Excuse me, I'm gonna drink a little. Your managers, we talked about that. It's your managers are powerful. To have good relationship with the people that work for you and your team, they're working with their teams and they're giving you that information. You're also empowering them to also have those conversations. You're empowering them to make change in the organization as we're going through through any sort of change. And this is not only, these things are also, and I'll kind of talk about it later, but these things are also as if there isn't ambiguity or change happening in the organization. This is a constant. Um, have informal leaders that you're talking to, culture leaders. You know, in every organization, there's people at all levels that are very seen and well known in the organization. They're definitely a good network to have and an asset to have with you as you're going through change. What are they seeing? What do they recommend? Communicate with them, have coffee with them. Trusted peers. I always like to have a trusted peer in an organization that I'm partnering with to hear, they could be the same, there should be the same level as you. It could be a peer or a coach. They can debrief you and regularly, and have regular meetings with people outside of it could even be outside of the organization. Have a mentor, that will talk you through these things. It's always good to actually have an impartial person. And then, of course, a plug, HR and the people partners. We are definitely here for you, whether it's fractional, whether internal. We are here to, when people are going through change, we come in, we hold in, we give you tactics to go through it. We are engaged with the population. We are here as your thought partners, your strategy. We're here to work you through this process also. And I think any organization, whether the folks are external or internal, any leader should be very close and walking in tune with an HR partner. That's just my unbiased opinion. So when all goes sideways, as you're going through process, what we want to hear is we went through this change and things have gone through in the best way and things have improved, everything's going great, and we've moved through this process. But sometimes things don't. Sometimes there needs to be some reorgs, sometimes even companies close. But you as a leader still need to stand tall and represent and be there for your people. Say, like I said before, say the hard things out loud, name what you can't fix, show up with your humanity, be that person, connect with them and what is stable and what is not. And again, give them as much honest truth as you can, and just be that leader, whether things have improved or whether things are not. Just be that trusted partner for them. Um, and I think I mean, this is kind of another slide, but be consistent. So I think I won't go into all the different things here, but I think the constantly up level your leadership, be consistent. You are human. There are times where things are going to where you're under pressure and things might go in a way that you're not expecting, but make sure that you're constantly developing, constantly continuing to have touch points, constantly developing your own leadership skills and conversations, and admitting, it's okay also to admit when you're not, when you're wrong and say, hey, I made a mistake. Let's try it a different way. Model the culture that you want to see in times. How, if you were going through this change and as an employee, and you are the employee, even as a leader, what would you want to see? You know, what kind of conversations would you want to have? So from that perspective, um, here's another aspect. Have you? This is a good talking point. Like, have you ever prepared for a crisis and then things have gone well and things have moved on, and then you just kind of go back to the same old, same old? Has that ever happened? And then so that also erodes trust within the organization. Oh, they showed up just for this one time frame, but then went back to the same old, same old. I think it's my point in this slide overall is the one thing that I would say is continue to always up level, keep a sense on your people, on the business, and outside of the business. So small shifts, big impact. We talked about this. Communicate, schedule a real conversation, not a status update. Keep a pulse on your people, not just your projects. Here's a here's a little fun bit. This is my dog, my golden doodle, and so what? And we can talk it through. So most leaders during uncertainty, before, and then what leaders look like after this webinar. They're Superman. All right. So this would be a perfect time where we can kind of chat about any questions you have, any sort of scenarios, anything that I mentioned, any questions on the stats, anything along those lines. Nope. Julie, I know you have a question.
Dang it, don't call me out like that. I was thinking about maybe you or someone else could share has there ever been a big failure and how did you recover around change?
I think I mean, I could speak to it. I mean, there have been failures, right? I've been in organizations where we, for example, we're going through funding and, 2 weeks before funding came through and funding, it didn't happen. So I think the recovery is letting the employees know and being empathetic to the employees. So what, even if you have to do some sort of layoff or anything along those lines, treating people with respect and the communication and making sure that you're having you're visible. So another aspect that, as I was going through my slides that I didn't mention is, there's certain points where you also should be out. You shouldn't be hiding in your office if you have one, right? You should be out with the employees and having the conversations, sitting in with the people. And so the recovery is really just letting people know what those timelines are, and then rebuilding that trust. So going back to really understanding what your team and your population needs. And then not doing everything that they need, but maybe taking one or two things from what their needs are and incorporate it into the organization. I think that is also really important. Getting that feedback. Anyone else have anything that they've done during the change?
Thank you.
We get a comment from Mac. Ambiguity can be used in place of proper planning. How can we manage away from that perception? So meaning that
Right.
Yeah, we're leaving it vague because we don't know what we're doing, I guess.
But I think that that's a thing to say to to actually say that, right? There's nothing wrong to with that with actually saying the fact that right now we're in the planning stages. We don't know what we don't know. So here is what we're able to give you, and it's okay to keep it, we're going to keep to actually say we're going to keep it a little vague until we have all the information for you. And then if anything comes up, or if you have any feedback, let me know, let us know, and then we'll be able to address that. Or, so from that aspect. I don't know if that, Mac, if that answered the question or if you have something more specific that you wanted to address.
No, that's fine. Like I said, it can be used in that space instead of actual planning. People just say, "Oh, we're loose, we're open, we're it's ambiguous right now," and not say, "Hey, we don't have a plan yet. We're working on that." So, thank you.
Yeah, and as a leader, I mean, we all have our bad days and good days, and we all have our faults. But I think the biggest point out in this whole situation is what I found is communicate even if you don't know how to communicate, and just but make sure that it's structured, right? I mean, it's okay to say. So one of the things that I learned early on in my career, as I've worked in different startup situations, is that people just want to hear from you. So this is where the ambiguity comes in. People just want to hear that they're being acknowledged, right? That something is happening. And it's okay to say, hey, I don't know today, but I will try to get back to you in the next week or two. That is a piece that stuck with me from early on in stages of my career because there was a mistake. I saw it in leadership. And so I was early on in my career and I followed that track record to say, oh, okay, well, they're not communicating and I'll just not say anything either. Well, big mistake, because that loses trust in the HR, that loses trust in the leadership team. And so you're still, I mean, I won't, you're still going to have people that are going to be unhappy, and it's just part of being in leadership. But as long as you're keeping that line of communication open and keeping, as they say, an open door and allowing them to raise their concerns, and then also what other thing is good when they raise their concerns, you're addressing them, and so it doesn't go into that rumor mill. It could still have some, but as long as you're confining that space and having those conversations. Anything else? What did you guys think about the crazy stats and the data? The 8.8 trillion. I thought that was a number that I had to double check the resources with that.
I will say, Anessa, that I think also once you do communicate, you also have to follow through, right? So I've seen leaders, so I'll have an example, because I'm also in the HR consulting space, for those of you who may not know, and was working with leaders that were doing a layoff. And so as a part of that, then you do a reorg afterwards, and it's helpful to then, as leaders, communicate what that reorg looks like. And so that
Absolutely.
was communicated to the team. Once we get this settled, we will share this org chart. This is what it's going to look like. This is what your team is, etc. And then it never happened. And so the team would go to HR. Who's my manager? And I'm like, why was this not communicated? Right? That it was a simple, this is what we're going to do. It wasn't followed through. It didn't happen. And trust started to erode. People are like, well, we can't believe what you say because you couldn't even follow through on a simple meeting. And so then it landed in HR's lap to try and fix the situation and communicate with leadership saying, hey, why wasn't this communicated? And then it kept getting punted. Oh, we'll do it later. We'll do it later. We'll get to it. And it just never happened. And so HR had to step in and say, hey, here are your leaders, and this is what the org chart looks like. And that immediately eroded trust. And so I think you communicate great, but then also follow through on what you're going to say, I think is equally as important.
Absolutely agree. And that's where the consistency lies, right? It's not just we went through change in the organization and we're done. We're come out the other side or we have layoffs, right? You're still managing this communication. So the follow through is absolutely true. And And that's actually, again, where I think demystifies HR and the people function, where we would work closely. We're the ones actually are going to push the leaders in the background and in the forefront to have that communication. So it's really important to have that synergy. Absolutely agree with you, Stephanie. Anything else? Well, Rod.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Enessa. Great insights. It strikes me that the bottom line is just lean in and take care of things. Share everything you've got. Keep people informed. Stay connected. It amplifies the need to do that when there's uncertainty. People always assume the worst if there's ever a gap to fill in, no matter how good your culture or company is. So thank you very much for the insights. These startling statistics are very compelling. And then everyone, please join us next month, June 1st at the same time with Steve Jolly from Motivosity. Thanks for joining, everybody.